sole focus of the mission is to get this race car to the top of that mountain on Sunday for race day. Nothing can allow you to deviate that course. Nothing. I don't care if you're tired, if you're hungry, if you don't feel good, if something's broken, you're missing it, it doesn't matter what it is. You are constantly problem solving for this problem, which is how do we get a race car up a 14,000 foot mountain with one chance to do it. Race day. It's a special day. It's the culmination of, for many, many months of effort. And I think what makes Pikes Peak so special, one of the many things, is that months of preparation, or in our case 10 days of preparation, and then a week's worth of practice come down to what is one make or break 10-minute run. Team, and you learn about how to improve yourself. For some, it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. So you are putting so much on the line for that 10 minutes. It's incredible. My goal and the mentality behind all of it was just to execute. My name is Tyler Pappas, and for some people, Tyspeed. Yeah, Pikes Peak is a really special event. And I think it's more special for the people who have been to experience it for themselves. Peripheral, people outside looking in, they know that it's a world-class motorsport event. They know it's a dangerous event. It's got history, camaraderie, all these crazy things. But the closer you get, the more it really digs into you, and it's really special that way.
My name is Tom Grady. I am the jack of all trades and master of none for Tyspeed. No, I do whatever has to be done. Change tires, brakes, oil, make Tyler drink water. That's it. Pikes Peak, to me, is just one of those things that it's like a bucket list item for car people, right? It's kind of like Tyler rides motorcycles, I've ridden motorcycles, and you know, Isle of Man was always is one of those things as well. Like it's really difficult to get involved and even more complicated to compete, and extremely complicated to finish. You know, to me, it's like life altering.
Yeah, so it really did come down to the wire getting prepped to leave for Pikes Peak, and I don't think I can express clearly enough to anybody watching this like how much preparation is really needed. And even though we didn't have a lot of time and we didn't execute like perfectly on that prep, there is certainly a minimum level of preparation that you need to be able to do before you even get in your truck. I mean, and there's definitely a threshold there of don't even go unless you've accomplished X, Y, and Z, right?
I mean, I was excited. It wasn't like, I knew Tyler was going. Like, we knew he was gonna go. He was gonna drive Old Smokey, and you know, I was gonna try to go and just to be there just for support and obviously the experience of it. But then to turn around and use this car was a daunting task, but very rewarding.
Probably about 5 or 6 months ago, right before the deadline for entry, which I believe is in April, Scott Birdsalls, Chuckles Garage in California, reached out and said that he was going to be bringing 2 diesel-powered vehicles to Pikes Peak this year, which, you know, it's hard enough to do 1, let alone 2. And he previously asked Dennis Anderson's son, who is Gravedigger, the monster truck driver, as everyone knows, to drive Old Smokey. And I guess there was a scheduling conflict or something of that nature that he couldn't participate in. So he was like a little bit desperate for finding somebody that was gonna be safe with this, you know, $500,000 truck, had a lot of pedigree and a lot of notoriety, and he wanted somebody that was gonna conduct themselves professionally. And he called around, and while I did befriend him, you know, in 2019 and saw him at another event subsequently, I don't know if he thought of me, you know, in a way where he was like, oh, let me let this guy drive my truck. But he called around, Pastor Don, a couple other folks, and my name came up, and he reached out and offered me the ride, and I took him up on it. And you know, I was a little bit skeptical, you know, for a few reasons. One was I don't have a lot of experience in anything like that. It's an exhibition vehicle, so it's not really like a race car. It was a race truck. It's a custom-built thing. Scott's a world-class fabricator, so the truck is, I would say, not more show than go, but it's certainly a very complicated piece of equipment. And so I was a little bit skeptical about the vehicle, and I met Scott, and he's a great guy. I love him to death. And so just being a part of somebody else's effort, you're kind of just like this bystander to, you know, whatever it is that they're doing, right? And in this instance, it was just, hey, show up to Colorado on this date, bring your helmet. No problem. So 3 weeks out from the event, it was a Friday, and he called me, and it was dinner time, and I actually knew what that call was before I picked up the phone, because he wasn't really big on the phone. He's more of like a text guy, and he was calling me, and it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was like, he's calling to cancel. And sure enough, I picked up the phone, and he said that they had put that other LMP car they were supposed to drive on the dyno, and that the motor blew up for a second time in the last like 3 weeks. It was almost like a blessing in disguise. So he calls me, he's like, hey, can't do this. I'm gonna take the truck back because my car is broken and we're not gonna make it, and I need something to drive for my sponsors, so really sorry, but basically you're beat. And I hung up the phone, and about 3 minutes went by, and I was just spinning like in this parking lot of this restaurant that I had gotten up from eating dinner at, to like just understand what that meant. We already had the Airbnb booked, the flights booked, people were off of work, we were going one way or the other, right? And now we weren't. So a few minutes went by, and I sat there to myself, and I was like, well, wait a second. And I picked right back up the phone, and I called him back. And he was like, yeah, what's up? And I was like, do you think that Pikes Peak, the race organization, would let me keep my entry but use my own car? And he was like, well yeah, but what, you got 3 weeks? And I was like, I'll figure that out. And I hung up the phone.
You just feel like you've got the rug pulled out from under you.
Yeah.
Like, what kept you from saying, like, no, screw that, like, we're going?
It's a great question. I think that personally, whatever makes up my wiring as Tyler Pappas, like when things become more difficult, or when people say no, you can't do that, I just ratchet strap down tighter and tighter and tighter, and it just drives me harder and harder. We're trying to make this a little bit of my backstory as a person, and I went through a lot of stuff when I was a kid that kind of fostered this mentality that I now live, which is that, like, no, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or you know, you don't have the right background, or you don't have the right experience, or whatever. And that made me really hungry growing up. And you know, I have a great family. I had a great upbringing, all things considered. I have a loving family and an awesome brother, and you know, but we grew up in like a beach town, and nobody knew about, or gave a shit for that matter, about race cars. And I've always been a car guy, and I think I had this like little chip on my shoulder, and I still do probably, you know, because of all of the teasing and the comments and all these like silly things that, like, you know, I was like some redneck racing cars. Like, what are you doing that for? Like, that's silly. Like, go try out for the baseball team. Go learn how to play soccer. My dad was a basketball coach for 25 years. He's like, learn how to shoot a jump shot. You know, trust me, you don't want to see that. So like, it just really, like, it really motivated me. You know, there's always these conversations that were like, no, like, that's stupid. That's a waste of time. go to college, learn how to play baseball, whatever. And like all I wanted to do was one of my idols growing up was like Jeff Gordon. I just wanted to like race a car on a racetrack at 200 miles an hour. So I thought that was like one of the most ultimate displays of sportsmanship. I mean, like combining so many things to be able to operate a vehicle at the limit. And I just pretty much chase that feeling since I was like 16, and I just spend the rest of the time thinking about how that I can. And this was a great example of that, because when we got involved in 2019, a lot of people that were involved with the shop and my family and stuff like that were like, what are you doing this for? Like, what are you setting out to prove, And I was like, you'll see, like, it'll be worth it. You'll see, just wait. And then, we go there and we do the event, and all the PR you get and all the people you meet and all these connections and things, these pieces you get to put together that you see every day in this industry are all happening in this one spot on the side of a 14,000 foot mountain. And it's an incredible display of humankind and their ability to persevere in difficult conditions and to make the impossible happen. And so I think that it was just like an extra spicy challenge, where it was like, I already knew what it took to do it because I've done it once before, but we had all the prep in the world. And now I was like, well, what can we do? What is that, if you really needed to condense that down to the time that we were given, which was 10 days, can it be done? Right? Now, granted, we didn't have to build a car. We had to reconfigure the car. We had to make some safety updates. We had to make a few changes. But then we also had 10 days to put together the logistics, which were previously, by the way, just showing up to enjoy a vacation in Colorado for the week before the event, and then just showing up race week with my helmet bag and my suitcase as a driver. And now it's car, equipment, truck and trailer, food supplies, crew, the list goes on. So it was pretty awesome to see it all come together. So we have the car set up the best we think that we can get it, and then we have to load the trailer with supplies to basically just be like living in a different state for 2 weeks. And you can't break something or forget something and just like go get it. You know what I mean? Like we're 1,200 miles away from home. So pretty much like packed all my tools and as much of stuff that we had that is related to going to the track into this trailer, and just gear up for a long cross-country haul. And it was actually really perfect because I had just an absolute whirlwind of a 10-day window trying to get this all together. And there was a lot of things that I thought were gonna actually stop us in our tracks along the way. And by the big man upstairs or anybody else involved, we kind of got through these things by the skin of our teeth. And now we're driving out to Colorado, and like there are still plenty of things that can stop us, but now they're stopping us from 1,200 miles away instead of here in the parking lot at Tyspeed. To just be able to turn around and go home would be a huge disappointment. So it was great to have some windshield time to myself. I was with Ash, my dog, and we kind of just were driving out at our own pace. And it was kind of cool. It was a good mental come down from a stressful 10 days of prep to just now regroup and start to look ahead at the week that we were going to go into for the race. But there were certainly some huge questions involved with tech and was the race organizers, were they going to be welcoming and opening to this whole thing, or was I going to get the cold shoulder because now I wasn't driving this famous car, and they kind of remember me from 2019, but like how much? So as if 10 days notice to get to Pikes Peak wasn't hard enough, I get to Colorado, and the next day we're at Pikes Peak International Raceway, which is a different spot, a few miles south of Pikes Peak. And we dyno tuned the car the day before we left for the event for elevation, but obviously that would be the first time driving it at altitude. And because the motor was naturally aspirated, I want to make sure that the car was like responding appropriately based on the way that we had tuned the car, to make sure that we basically ended up with what we left here in New Jersey with. So we didn't get to the mountain the first day of practice and find ourselves with an engine that like barely ran or didn't run or whatever. So I rolled the car out of the trailer at Pikes Peak International Raceway, and they were nice enough to, that morning, just like give us their huge big back like parking lot to just drive the car around in, you know, a little bit at speed just to see how it would all run. And so I'm hanging out with my buddy Hunter, who lives out in Colorado, and he's there just kind of filming it, and we're just like messing around. And I take the car out for a lap around the parking lot, and you can't even make this shit up, because I do one lap around this parking lot. It's not even a racetrack, it is literally a parking lot. And I go to get on the gas, and I want to go through like second and third gear to make sure like the acceleration feels solid. And I'm doing about 75, 80 miles an hour, and like as I come up, you know, you're sitting pretty low in the race car in the parking lot, I see a divot and like a bump where like the pavement was uneven. And by the time I recognized like the ramp angle, I knew that I was in trouble. And as soon as I hit it, I went fully airborne. I mean, like we were just like I have a video of it, like it was just all four wheels are off the ground. The car is just like an airplane. And I was like, man, this is bad. And when I hit the ground, I knew that I was in big trouble, because as soon as I hit the ground, I was looking straight up at the sky. And it was because this very bespoke JRZ adjustable shock, as I landed, snapped in half. And I cannot express to you the disappointment of that feeling of getting out of that car and looking at the damage that had been done, because here we were, after overcoming so much adversity to get to Colorado, and 24 hours in, it looked like it was over. And it sucked. It really sucked. I just wanted to throw up, honestly, because I single-handedly took myself out of everything that we were working for. And it wasn't necessarily negligence. It wasn't, you know, it was just bad luck. It just hit a bump too hard. The car wasn't ready for it. It wasn't properly set up for what we thought we were going to encounter, and it did a lot of damage. I don't think I'll ever forget this moment, because as I'm sitting there in the back of my truck, a thunderstorm rolls in and it starts just pouring rain. And I just like didn't give a shit. You know, I'm just standing in this parking lot, just getting soaked. Everything's getting wet. The car is getting wet. I feel miserable. And the mountain is behind the storm in this cloud coverage in the background, and it's literally just me and Pikes Peak staring back at each other, and it's like laughing at me. I'm being rained on, and the mountain is just looking perfectly picturesque. I can see the summit from this parking lot of this racetrack, and I got this broken shock in my hands, and I'm just like, ah, you know, like, oh my God, like what the hell am I doing here? Like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, this stress is just not good. And like I spoke earlier about just digging deeper, like I think when you get a few minutes to regroup and you're like, okay, where are we at? What's the deal? You know, and that's when we found ourselves back at, now this is going to be the first time that I walk into Winslow BMW, which was the local BMW dealership there, who has done a lot over the last couple of years, especially to support the BMW efforts, the various BMW efforts that are participating at Pikes Peak. And I walk in and I meet Greg, and I'm like, Greg, it's nice to meet you. I was like, I think this is actually a hello and a goodbye. We just went to test the car, and we broke the shock, and I think unfortunately it's going to put us out of being able to participate. And he was like, in his typical Greg way, he was like, now hang on a second. You know, he's like, let me make a few phone calls here. So Greg picks up the phone, he calls Brian, his foreman, and he's like, Brian, don't you have an M3 E92? And he's like, yeah. He's like, we need some shocks. He's like, you think you can come down here and bring us your car and borrow some parts? And he was like, I guess. You know, he didn't know who we were. And right off the bat, man, that place came in clutch, because not only did they become our home for the 7 days that we were there, but the people that were there were so supportive of the effort. And I think at first they were like a little apprehensive, because they've got James Clay from Bimworld being housed there, and they've got Reese Millen from Reese Millen Racing, and the M8, and this car that they're personally sponsoring. And now it's like, comes this third guy who doesn't have his shit together that we got to help out now too. And you know, not to say that they were portraying themselves in any way that made me feel this way, but that's what I felt. I was like this low man, small guy on the totem pole. They've got their two big efforts that they got to get focused on, and now I'm coming in, and right off the rip, I've got a problem that needs to be solved. And instead of backing away and saying like, oh man, that really sucks, like thanks for coming out, have a nice day, they were like, how can we help? And they really did. They did exactly that. They pooled their resources and used their people and they were able to help us overcome yet another setback and allowed us to continue on with our participation that week. So I really can't speak enough about what goes on there in that dealership. It's almost like what goes on here at Tyspeed a little bit. Like, you know, it's a corporate store, but it's family. Everybody there is well cared for, and everybody there that's participating really, I think, understands Pikes Peak as an event, and so they were just more than willing to help out every step of the way. And I don't think that we would have, I mean, we would not have made it to race day without them, but I can't ever imagine going back and not being a part of Winslow BMW and having some pride in representing them as their own brand, their own store, because it just wouldn't have been possible without them. I told my brother when he got there, he flew out to Colorado on Monday and he met up with me before we went over with the car to tech inspection. And when he sat down in the car with me before we went to tech, I looked at him and I said, this is gonna suck. I was like, you're gonna feel like you're on a military deployment for the next 10 days. And I was like, I thank you for being here as my brother to support me, but unfortunately, I think he like needed to go get like a sandwich or something. And I was like, we have to go to tech, you know? I was like, your hunger is gonna have to wait, basically. And I wasn't trying to be mean about it. I was just like, the sole focus of the mission is to get this race car to the top of that mountain on Sunday for race day. And that's a mentality, and this is the mentality that leads to the success of being able to do this twice in a row, right? So now I'm speaking from experience, the second year in doing this. Nothing can allow you to deviate that course. Nothing. I don't care if you're tired, if you're hungry, if you don't feel good, if something's broken, you're missing it, it doesn't matter what it is. You are constantly problem solving for this problem, which is how do we get a race car up a 14,000 foot mountain with one chance to do it? And you just can't deviate from that. So every decision that you're making while you're there for that week is just relying upon that exact mentality. There's nothing else that changes that. So, you know, for me as a goal, yes, it's to make it to the top of that mountain, but the goals change every day. You know, is the goal to, you know, fix something that got broken on the car? Is the goal to rattle your crew to get their head in the game, to participate so that they can help you make sure that you're safe when you're up there? You know, are you drinking water? Are the tires and wheels tight on the car? Is there oxygen in the car? Like, is there fuel in the car? So, you know, my goal and the mentality behind all of it was just to execute, you know, at all times, was not deviating from the plan that we would try to set forth every morning. I would do my best, you know, with you and with Ryan to get you guys to understand what the goal was of each individual day that we were up there for practice. And you know, we didn't go up there with anybody that had any automotive expertise other than me, so it was kind of just like, let's just make sure that the car runs and just making sure that it stays together enough to make it through that morning's practice. So yeah, that was really it. It's the goal is just to make it to the top of the mountain, man. What's up, guys? Tyler from Tyspeed. We're here at Pikes Peak International Raceway, which is a little track just to the south of Pikes Peak, the mountain. We got the chance to test the E92 M3 today. We obviously made a ton of changes at home in the shop: aero, suspension, brakes, tires, you name it, in preparation for this event. So wanted to get ourselves a little bit of confidence going into tomorrow's qualifying run up the lower section. I'd say that we have that. The car feels great, and I'm pretty confident in what we've done to the car in terms of changes for the mountain. So that being said, we're going to wrap things up here. We're going to head back to Winslow BMW, make a couple of last-minute changes that we found out about in tech this morning, and hopefully get things ready to go onto the mountain early tomorrow for our first qualifying run of the week.